What's up everybody, I am Jaspreet Singh and we live in a capitalist system. Hate it or love it, that is what it is, and the people that become incredibly successful in this system are the people that understand how the system works because then they know how to win in the game. The way you win in a capitalist system is by leveraging your capital to help make you more money. This is where a lot of people get upset because they say, I don't have any capital, I don't have a lot of money, I wasn't born into wealth, my parents were millionaires. How am I supposed to now get this capital in order to win in this system? But this is where, again, you need to understand how the system works. That way you can win in the system, because what you need to do is first, you need to understand how you can attract that money. That way now you can use your capital in order to win in this capitalist system. This is one thing that I wish schools would have taught us, because the reason why so many people suck at this game is because they don't understand how the game works. There are three categories or ways that you can attract money. One is by using capital. You use your money to make more money. The second is by using your labor. You work hard to make money. And the third is, well, the genetic lottery. You win the lottery and millions of dollars fall into your lap. If you're one of those people, well, this doesn't really apply to you because I cannot change or affect that. So we're not going to be talking about the lottery system. Real wealth, real riches are built here. Yet our school system focuses just here. It teaches us how to make more money through our labor, but it never teaches us here, even though we are in a capitalist system, which means that the way that you build wealth is through your capital. Now, the argument is that the average person is not going to be able to take advantage of this because they don't have access to the capital, which will allow you to capitalize on this system. But the reality is, if you want to win, the first thing you have to do is you have to understand how the system works. I didn't grow up learning this. My parents are immigrants from a state in India called Punjab. My dad came to this country with less than $100. I grew up being told in my house that the only way you become successful is by studying hard in school and by getting a good job, by becoming a doctor. That's what my teachers told me. But at the same time, I saw my parents working their butt off every single day, 6 or 7 days a week, long hours every single day, no holidays off, no weekends off, working all the time, trying to figure out how to become successful. And that's where I realized there has to be something different. So I went out and started reading my own books, started reading books about money, started reading books about investing, started reading books about entrepreneurship. And that's when I started to realize we are playing a money game, but none of us are taught the rules of how to win in the game. If you want to become successful, the first thing you have to do is you have to understand the rules. And what school teaches us is it teaches us how to maximize our income here through our labor. Unless you have rich parents who are going to give you a whole lot of money, most of us have to start here. My first real job, real technical job, was at Auntie Anne's Pretzels, where I made $5 and I think 45 cents an hour. They paid me below minimum wage because I wasn't 18 years old at the time. And I was also working on my own side hustle, my own side business. I used to play an Indian drum called the dhol at weddings. And in the beginning, I was charging $50 for an evening for me to play the drum at your wedding. It wasn't a lot of money because I wasn't very good. I was just getting started. But as I started to get better, I was able to charge more money to play the drum at people's weddings. In a few years, I went from charging $50 for an evening to $250 for 1 hour of me playing at your wedding. Now, I didn't suddenly become that much better. I became good. I knew how to play the drum. I knew how to carry a rhythm. I became pretty decent. But the reason why I was able to charge more was because of the years of experience that I had. Now I was good. Now I was able to perform well, and you were willing to pay for my expertise. That's why I was able to charge more for my labor, because I became good at what I did. While at Auntie Anne's Pretzels, after a couple years of working there, they gave me a raise of $0.25 an hour. $0.25, 25 cents an hour. That's the raise that I got after working there for 2 years. And then I quit, or they kind of fired me, and I quit at the same time because they didn't like that I kept taking time off to go to football practice. But I left, and then I continued working to figure out how I could make more money through my dhol business by playing the drum at weddings. My goal was then to go to college. That way I can maximize the value of my labor, because if I get a good degree, if I go to medical school, I will become a doctor, and now my time is going to be very valuable. So I will be able to charge a lot of money per hour to do surgeries or to see patients, because now my labor is extremely valuable, and I would become a highly skilled professional so I can maximize my labor, right? This is what school is trying to do, where you go and get a good education, which gives you a good degree, which will help you get a good job, which will help you get a bigger paycheck. But now the question is, what do you do with this labor? For most people, this is the end. You work hard at your job and that's it. You're making a good income and that's what you want to live off of. But you have to remember, this is the system that we're in right now. Hate it or love it, this is reality. And you have to understand that if you want to win in this system. In this capitalist system, you have to deploy your capital if you really want to build wealth. What that means is twofold. So now, if you get a good paying job and you're trying to climb this corporate ladder, you're going from analyst to associate to director to VP to CEO, you're trying to climb this corporate ladder. This is the labor side of things. You're trying to get more money for the labor that you put in, but you also, this is what wealthy people do. You also want to work not just to climb the corporate ladder, but you also want to work to own the corporate ladder. That's what deploying your capital means. Deploying your capital means working for equity. It means working to have your money work for you. So in one case, on the company side, that means working for equity. That means owning a piece of a company. Maybe you start your own company. If you're not an entrepreneur and that's not for you, maybe that means investing in a company. So now you own a piece of the company, so you own a piece of the profits. Like in 2021, the CEO of Coca-Cola made $17 million. That's a lot of money. He makes that because he's on the top of the corporate ladder. He's on the top of the food chain. But at the same time, Warren Buffett, who owns a big chunk of Coca-Cola, made $168 million in dividends, a profit share from doing nothing except just owning a piece of the company. So the owner, Warren Buffett, made 10 times more than the top paid employee at Coca-Cola because he owned a piece of the company because he's working for equity. This is what you need to start thinking of if you want to win in this system. You need to be working towards equity. That's owning shares of company, that's owning stock, that's owning real estate. It's owning assets because now you're not just getting paid for the labor that you put in. You're not just getting paid for each hour that you work. You're getting paid for owning the right assets. Now this can be a hard concept to grasp, especially if you're like me and you didn't grow up learning about money, you didn't grow up learning about entrepreneurship, and you were discouraged from doing all of these things. And for me, I had to go through a big learning curve trying to figure it out. Like I started off with playing the dole, the Indian drum. And then I go to college thinking that I'm going to become a doctor. And as soon as I go to college, everybody around me is partying like crazy. I didn't know people go to college to party. My parents didn't go to university here, so I didn't know that that was what college was like. Nobody told me that. I didn't know anybody that was going to college here. So for me, it was a big shock to see everybody partying. But I had already met a lot of DJs because I was working in the wedding business. And that was an idea for me because now I don't party. I don't drink, but I needed something to do on Friday nights. So instead of me going to the parties, I started hosting the parties. I started knocking on doors at the different clubs, venues, and bars. I didn't drink, I wasn't into drinking, but I wanted something to do. And that's how I started my event planning company. Now, I thought I was starting a real business because I started to make good money. It took me a year or so to really understand how things worked, but I started to make money and I started to make decent money. But the problem was I didn't actually have a company because there was no equity in what I was doing. My business wasn't worth anything. I was making good money. I was making a lot of money for a college kid. But the business was really just valued around my labor. It was just me trying to put deals together and try to make things happen. If I wasn't working, I wasn't getting paid. That's when I went out and I bought my first real estate investment property, and that was my first exposure to any of this. I went out and I bought my first real estate investment property. It was a small condo, and I bought this property and I rented it out. And it took me a little bit of time to figure out how things worked because I made a lot of mistakes. I didn't have any guidance. I didn't know any real estate investors, so I was trying to figure it out myself. But once I got the hang of it, now all of a sudden my money, my equity was making me money. Because I owned this property, I wasn't going to work every single day to make sure that the property was functioning and working. I owned the asset, and then this property was paying me rent every single month because somebody was living there. I had a happy couple that was living there that really liked the property, and they were paying me rent happily every single month because I provided them with a good service. I provided them with a good value, a good property. And so now my equity, my money was making me money, and that was the first time I got a taste of what it meant to have your capital, your money, make you money. This is where I really started to get irritated. I was doing good in school. I was working my butt off to get good grades, but I never learned about any of this in school. The only thing that I was taught in school was how to read books and how to take tests, because hopefully these tests would help me get a good job, and a good job would help me maximize the money that I'm making here, but it never taught me anything about how do I make money here. And if the system revolves around you making money here, how come we're never taught this in school? Because if you look at some of the wealthiest people in the world, all of them make their money here, not here. Like, yeah, doctors and attorneys make a good salary, but that's just here. That has nothing to do with this. So the obvious first answer of how you start is first, okay, you're making money from your labor. The more money you make from your labor, the better. And then you live small, so you have a little bit of a cushion. You have this margin between what you make and what you spend. And the rest of the money you want to spend here. Use the money to buy stocks, use the money to buy real estate, maybe use this money to get equity in the company that you're working at. That way now you can start using your capital. But let's think a little bit bigger. I've come to realize that anytime I make a financial decision, I need to analyze three things. I need to analyze the financial side of the decision, I need to analyze the legal side of the decision, and then I got to analyze the moral side of the decision. This is important because all of our morals are going to be different. What's right for you is going to be different for me. My morals have changed over time. Like one of the things that I don't invest in is any cannabis or weed companies. I don't smoke weed. If you want to, that's fine, but it's not right for me. I don't believe in smoking weed. I can make a lot of money if I got into the weed business. And it's legal here in Michigan. And I know a lot of people that are doing it and they're saying, hey, Jaspreet, come on, let's get into the weed business. We can make a lot of money doing this. But it didn't fit my moral compass. That's why I don't do it. That's another reason why I got out of the entertainment company. I got out of the party planning business because I don't drink. And I didn't like the industry that I was in. I was making good money. It was completely legal, but morally, it didn't sit right with me. But what I want to focus on in this video is right here, the financial side. Because if you want to attract the most money, you want to make sure that the labor that you put in is going to be scalable, where the labor is going to actually build you equity. Like in the entertainment company that I was telling you about, I was putting in a lot of work, but I wasn't building any equity because the company that I was building wasn't anything. It was just me. The more value that you can provide, the more money that you will make. Now, if you really want to scale up the amount of value that you can provide, you want to make sure that you're working to build something that's bigger than you. I'm an entrepreneur, so I like the idea of coming up with business ideas and solving problems. And when I started this YouTube channel, I started it as a hobby. For me, this was just something that I was going to do on the side because I was working on different businesses at the time. And then as the Minority Mindset brand started to grow, I realized, wow, I can actually do something with this. So then I brought in my entrepreneurial mind and I turned Minority Mindset into a company. I added in a newsletter, I created other financial classes, we created an app, and I was doing all this under Minority Mindset, and then I got confused. What am I doing here? Am I really building anything scalable? No. I am Minority Mindset. I can't build a company around that. I need to separate my companies from me. So that's what I did. So Minority Mindset became me, became my personal brand, and then I separated Market Briefs, which is our financial newsletter. What this allowed me to do was it allowed me to use my labor to build equity in a company. So my labor is here on YouTube. I'm working to build this brand on YouTube. I'm working to get exposure on YouTube. I work to get views on YouTube. And then this views, this labor that I put in, then allows me to build equity in companies like Market Briefs, which is our daily newsletter. And this is a team that I manage. I'm the CEO of the company. We have a whole team of writers, but it's not dependent on me. If I were to die tomorrow, the company could continue on and keep operating because it doesn't need me to write the newsletter every single day. We have a team of writers and team of analysts who research what's going on in the financial world. They break it down and then they send you an email every morning breaking it all down. It's a free newsletter if you want to subscribe, but that's how the company works. So I was able to use my labor to build equity in that. So what I'm trying to get at is not that you need to go onto YouTube and build a company, but that you want to make sure that you're doing something that's scalable, that's bigger than you. Because a lot of times when you're trying to build a side hustle, you're trying to build a business, all you're thinking about is how you can make the most money, the most dollar per hour that you have to work. But you need to start thinking bigger if you really want to get towards that wealth, where it's not just you. You want to build a business, a system that doesn't just rely on you. Now this is where it goes back to the same question of, do you need money to make money? Do you need money to start? And no, you don't. You just have to know how to be creative. I mean, I didn't start with millions of dollars to start Market Briefs. I started the YouTube channel. And then the YouTube channel started making me money. And then I started to reinvest this money back into the channel. And then I reinvested that money into Market Briefs. So you have to know how to be creative. 90% of us have to start with our labor. We have to start with our labor, working a job. We have to start with our labor, working ourselves to figure out how we can start attracting money. But now as you start attracting money, that's where you got to figure out where you want to put this money. You could put this money into a brand new car, or you could put this money back into your business. Let me put it this way. If YouTube and Minority Mindset was my business, I would take the money that I'm make from YouTube and the brand Minority Mindset and put it all into my personal bank account, and then I would use this money to live off of. I'd buy a nicer car, I'd spend my money on a bigger home, and I would just be going out on vacations and spending all of my money. But I don't do that because I'm using the money that I make in order to reinvest into building that equity that was here on the board. Building the equity, that way I can build something bigger than just me. Because if I stop making YouTube videos, YouTube's not going to pay me anymore. It's the same thing if you're working a job. Not everybody is meant to be an entrepreneur. Not everybody can be an entrepreneur. But what you can do is you can work and make money from your job. Now, when you're working and making money from your job, you also want to take some of the money that you're earning, and now you want to use this money to invest in equity. That way you can own assets to actually make you wealthy. This might be investing in real estate. It might be investing in stocks. Maybe invest some of your money into cryptocurrency. Maybe investing your money into startups. But now you want to invest in other smart entrepreneurs that are innovating, that are creating new products, that are building value. That way now your money can grow. That way it's not just you working for your labor, because at the end of the day, you cannot work forever and you cannot work 24 hours a day, but your money can. So you want to make sure that you're not just relying on you, because if you break your leg and you can't go into work, you're not going to get paid. Or if you get sick and you can't work, now you don't have an income. So this is why it's so important for you to understand the way that the system works, because you want to work not just for your labor, but for that profit, the equity. That way now you have people working for you. You have people that are working to earn your money, and now you're getting a piece of the profit. I'm going to say this one more time, because the great thing is once you understand this, you're going to realize that it doesn't matter how much money you make. Whether you're working for $25,000 a year or $250,000 a year, you can take advantage of the system if you understand how it works, because now you can take a little bit of your money and you can keep putting it aside, and now you're working for the profits, because now you can keep investing your money. It doesn't cost that much money to invest your money in the stock market. I mean, you can start with as little as $100. You just need to know what to do. And even if you don't know how to pick the right company, you can just invest your money into an ETF. And this ETF will give you exposure to all the top stocks in the stock market. That way now, if the stock market goes up, you make more money. If the stock market goes down, you lose money. That way now you don't have to go out and hire an expensive money manager. You can just put your money into the market and let the market do its thing. But in order for this to work, you have to be consistent and you have to get started no matter how much money you have. I've talked about Earl Crawley, the parking lot attendant who didn't make more than $12 an hour, who retired with more than $500,000 built in his investment portfolio because that's what he did. And I also talked about Ronald Reed, the janitor who was making minimum wage, who retired with a multi-million-dollar nest egg because he did the exact same thing. He took a little bit of money every time he get paid, and he kept investing that money to build equity instead of just relying on his labor to survive. So now the question is, step by step, what do you do? Well, I broke it down to 5 steps. Number 1 being you have to be willing to work hard. If you're not willing to work hard, it's going to become impossible for you to do this. And I have never met a successful, wealthy person who believed in not working hard. I mean, you hear all the time of people saying, work smart, don't work hard. But the reality is, if you really want to achieve the success that you want to see, you have to be willing to work hard, you have to be willing to work smart, and you have to work in the right direction. You want to make sure that the hard work is getting you the biggest bang for your buck, and the way that you do that is by working smart in addition to working hard. So you got to get it out of your head that you're not going to be working hard, because if you want to achieve any sort of wealth, you want to achieve any sort of richness, you have to be willing to work hard. Second, you got to work on developing your mindset. I call it the minority mindset, where now you're thinking differently than the majority of people, because if you keep doing what everybody else does, you're going to end up just like everybody else. And for most people, you don't want to be like everybody else. You don't want to be like the majority. So this is where you got to start breaking away from the majority. You got to start thinking like the minority. But this is where you also have to understand that you can achieve success yourself. Our biggest roadblock and our biggest hurdle to achieving success is many times ourselves, because we tell ourselves that we can't do it. Oh, somebody like me can't become wealthy. Somebody from my background can't do it. Somebody with parents like mine can't achieve it. Somebody who's gone through the crap that I've gone through can't do it. But the reality is you got to be the person that's got to break out of that mindset. You have to believe it's possible for you. The bigger you think, the bigger you'll be able to achieve. I never thought that somebody that looks like me would be able to make it on YouTube. I never thought that somebody with my background could be a successful entrepreneur. I never thought that somebody who has English as their second language could have one of the fastest growing newsletters on the internet. But the reality is you have to believe in yourself and you have to think bigger, because if you don't, nobody else will. So you have to start developing that mindset for yourself. And if you don't, then you're not going to get anywhere. And the easiest way to start developing this is just read books. Read some personal development books. Go out and watch some videos on YouTube on personal development. Learn how to develop that growth mindset and break out of the scarce mindset, because it sucks, but the reality is the majority of people have a broke, scarcity mindset. We have this limited belief, we have this limited minded thinking, we have this scarcity thinking where all we're thinking about is how can we squeeze a few more pennies out of the pie? How can we get the best for ourselves instead of thinking bigger, instead of making something bigger? What I want you to do is grow the pie, think bigger, and work for something bigger. Third, you have to be willing to learn. The way I like to say it is education is the backbone for your success. But the question you have to ask yourself is, where are you getting your education? I went through a lot of schooling. I went through college. I went through law school because when my parents found out that I wasn't going to be a doctor, they weren't very happy. So I compromised with them and I went to law school. But I don't use my law degree. I don't practice as an attorney. And what I've learned is you have to know where you're getting your education from, because there's a difference between the education that you get in your school and financial education. For the majority of people, your education ends at school. But for the minority of people, school is just where the education starts. I'm learning every single day. The easiest place to access more education for free is on YouTube. YouTube is decentralizing education, which is why I love YouTube, because now whether you're rich, whether you're poor, whether you're black, whether you're white, whether you're purple, whether you're yellow, whether you're brown, you can learn whatever you want from the best teachers in the world on your fingertips for free. So YouTube is decentralizing education. You can start learning whatever you want, but you need to make sure that you're picking your teachers wisely, because you're going to have some teachers on YouTube that tell you that hard work is bad, that this growth mindset is bad, that you need to focus on learning the same crap that you've been learning your whole life. Then you have other teachers on YouTube that are going to teach you the opposite. Now, it's a free country. You can pick and learn whatever you want, but if you want to become wealthy, you want to make sure that you're picking your teachers the right way, because now that you have this decentralized education, you can learn whatever you want, but it's so important to have the right teachers, because the right education is going to be the foundation to whatever you achieve. You can also read books, you can buy classes, you can go to seminars. This is where you want to absorb yourself. You want to start absorbing the right content where now you're learning the right things that are going to make you successful, and you want to make sure you're learning from the people that have achieved what it is that you want to achieve. Fourth, you want to apply the financial steps that I talked about in this video. You need to start using your money the right way, which means you need to use your money as a tool and not just as a fool. That means now you're working to increase your income, whether that's through your business or through your job. You need to know yourself. Not everybody can be an entrepreneur, and not everybody is meant to be an entrepreneur. If it's for you, try it. If it's not for you, don't do it. So now you're working to increase your income from your labor. But now as you're doing that, you want to make sure that your labor is getting you the best returns, meaning you are going to not spend all of your money. You're not just going to go out and buy a brand new car because you can. You're going to continue to live small. That way you have that margin, you have some cushion, you have some extra cash that now you can use to go out and build this equity. You're going to go out and invest in real estate. You're going to go out and invest in stocks. Maybe you invest in startups. Maybe you're going to invest in whatever. You're going to invest in your own company. You're going to be investing into this equity, because now you need to own the assets, where now it's not just your labor that's making you money. You're not just going to work to get a paycheck, but you're using your money to make you more money. And the key to succeeding with that is you got to be consistent, and you have to do it for the long term. This is not a 1-year game or a 5-year game or a 10-year game. This is a lifestyle game, where this is what you're going to start doing for the rest of your life. If you want to really build wealth, you have to change your lifestyle to build a wealthy lifestyle. You're going to be wealthy in your mind before you're wealthy in your bank account, but you have to put all of these together if you want to achieve this wealth. And fifth, you have to be willing to take risks. Without risk, there is no return. That's why a lot of times people will say the bigger the risk, the bigger the potential financial return. If you're not willing to take risks with your money, with your time, you're never going to see any success. I mean, there's a lot of people that will never invest their money because they're scared of the risk of them potentially losing their money. I get it. I grew up in that type of household where my parents and my family were a save-heavy culture. Don't risk investing your money. That's risky. Why would you want to do that? Why would you want to invest in real estate? Because we saw what happened to real estate in 2008. But if you're not willing to take risks, you're never going to see any of the upside. And now you have to also understand the economic factors. If you don't go out and take a risk and invest your money, the alternative risk is your money is going to be eaten away by inflation each and every day. So that's a guarantee. If you don't take a risk, you don't do anything with your money is going to lose your value. And if you don't do anything with your time, you're going to be stuck where you are. So there's a risk of not doing anything, and then there's a risk of doing something and failing. I'd rather take that risk of doing something and failing and trying, rather than taking the risk of not doing anything and not seeing any returns and being stuck where I am in my life. And you have to make that decision for yourself, but you have to understand that you have to be willing to take risk, and the best way that you can mitigate your risk is by learning. The more you learn, the less risky things become because now you can believe in yourself. But the only way that you can learn is by taking a risk and learning from the risk that you took. And one of the reasons why this is so hard is because people are going to look at you like you're crazy. When your friends see you downsizing on your car, when your friends see you not going out on the vacation, when your friends see you start saving money and investing money, they're going to think that you lost your mind. What you mean you're not buying that Gucci scarf anymore? What you mean you're going from your BMW to your Toyota? But the reality is, if you want to achieve the success, you got to start doing what the majority of people are not willing to do. Because if you keep doing what the majority of people do, you're going to end up like the majority of people. If you enjoyed this video, here's a video on how I use my credit cards that I think you'll love. And while you're at it, if you want to start generating passive income, you can read my free ebook by clicking that button below. Thank you for watching, and as always, keep hustling. And this is arguably the most valuable thing that you get with credit cards, because this protection is something that you don't really get anywhere else.